Picking up Sunday.
I'm just playing about my ass.
You're good. You're good. No explanation.
All right, you're live.
Give it 1 minute. This is our only meeting this week, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Only one meeting. No,
I'm
I'm
got,
good.
we're gonna tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And actually, we couldn't this week because there's not enough time in notice. Well, we could for Friday.
Saturday morning.
Yeah, we could do it for
These
Saturday.
are all really bad ideas, guys. I don't know why we're talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
this.
yeah.
A little downtime is okay.
Mhm.
Saturday morning.
Next Saturday.
Yeah, just, when are we having noon in November? There's a meeting on the calendar at noon for like a Tuesday.
Ask Natalie. Oh, it would be a work meeting of some type or something like that. All right, 6 o'clock, is everybody good? Can we get started? All right, I'd like to open the meeting at 6 o'clock on September 9th, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's ready to go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Ms. Johnson, we need roll call, please.
Mayor Niven,
Here.
Councilmember Bryan. Here. Councilmember Glazer.
Here.
Councilmember Rainville.
Present.
Councilmember Swenson.
Here.
Planner Nash. Here. Lieutenant Egger.
Here.
Fire Chief Miller.
Here.
Financial Assistant Yeager. Here. Financial Consultant, sorry. And myself, Natalie Johnson. Roll call is.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I have 2 items for the agenda. One is I would like to pull consent agenda item F. And in lieu of that, I'm going to ask staff assist me with arranging conversations with Mary Leeser, Sarah Jensen, Natalie, and any other staff as needed to discuss the 2026 market. So I'd like to
So
pull
remove.
that. Just pull that.
Ms. Johnson, did you have a recommendation to remove 5C?
Yeah, I have one more.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. And then I would ask council's consideration to move item 6, finance, the 2026 preliminary budget, to the consent agenda, letter H. Council's had numerous meetings on the budget, and we've made a commitment to come back and look at it when some additional expenditures are in closer to the end of the year, and we'll look at it again to see if we can do any reductions. But we've already had the conversations, and so I'd like to see if we can move that to consent.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, complete? Councilmember Glazer, go ahead, please.
I think the council should have the opportunity to vote on that and to share any public comments that they have in regards to the budget being proposed levy for 2025.
For finance, your recommendation is not put in consent, leave it as 6A?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Johnson, did you have a recommendation on consent agenda C?
We did. Mark, would you wanted to address a couple of the contract changes that Bob wanted once we get to this?
Yes, and sorry, just so I could hear, is this in with respect to the recycling contract, or is this with respect to the sewer agreement Bob was looking at, the ordinance?
Nope, the recycling center.
Yeah, there are just a few things I'd like to talk about with respect to that. It will be brief.
Okay, so yes. we
So
would-
remove from the consent, and it needs to be its own item. What item should that become?
Should go down to old business B.
Recycle center will become 13B. Okay, so we got one conflicting motion on this, and right now it was to put finance into the consent, and then we had a request to keep it separate. So if that's the case, I would like to keep it separate, so if there's additional discussion needs to happen on it. Does that meet your intent, ma'am? Councilmember Ray, that's okay? Anything else for approving the agenda? No other discussion, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? So moved.
Second.
Quick and easy, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we will go into the proclamation for Constitution Week, September 17th to the 23rd. So I get to read. So the proclamation resolution, whereas it's the privilege and duty of the American people to commemorate the 238th anniversary of drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America with appropriate ceremonies and activities. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation every year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Shane Hibben, by virtue of authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Nowthen, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week, and urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American, with all the rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city to be affixed on the 9th of September on the year of our Lord, 2025. Okay, next agenda item is proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I get to read again. Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas the community problem of domestic violence has become a critical public health and welfare concern in Anoka County. And whereas domestic violence is a crime, the commission on which will not be tolerated in Anoka County, and perpetrators of said crime are subject to prosecution and conviction in accordance with the law. And whereas over thousands of women, men, and children have and will continue to access assistance from Alexander House and Court, domestic violence service provider. And whereas domestic violence will be eliminated through community partnership of concerned individuals and organizations working together to prevent abuse, while at the same time affecting social and legal change. And whereas October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And whereas during the National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, Anoka County organizations will inform area residents about domestic violence, its prevalence, consequences, and what we as a concerned community can do to eliminate its existence. Now, therefore, be it resolved and known to all that the city of Nowthen proclaims October to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month on September 9, 2025. Okay, next thing up is a public forum. Did anybody sign up to speak today in the public forum? Okay, so we won't open up the public forum. We will move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I would move the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. We remove C and we also remove F. Okay, next up is finance. Ms. Yeager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this evening is a presentation regarding the 2026 preliminary levy and budget. And I would just like to go through this presentation, if that's okay with you.
Yes, please. If you lead the presentation, then we'll just do questions at the end.
So the council adopts a preliminary levy every year prior to September 30th. This year it's prior to September 30th of 2025. And then this council also sets a public meeting date for the final levy and budget. And that public meeting date will be Tuesday, December 9th on 2025 at 6 p.m. in Town Hall here. And that's the night that the council will adopt its final levy and budget, unless there's a continuation meeting that is required after that meeting. There is an opportunity to lower the levy after this evening, but you cannot increase your levy after this evening. So the council directed staff to come back with the needed changes to the levy to meet its debt and its capital and for its operations in 2026. Currently, the proposed levy or preliminary levy is set at $2,341,432, which is $212,000 over the previous levy. And you can see there the breakdown is really in debt service is the primary reason for that increase in the levy. There's $17,000, $17,515 that's attributed to the general fund, and then $194,551 for debt service. And that's for existing debt and new debt issued for road projects in for 24 and 25 and the fire rescue truck. So the city is planning for its future by levying the appropriate amount to operate efficiently and effectively. And the city is also utilizing the excess fund balance to help pay for transfers to other funds. So currently the transfers out are or the use of fund balance is $352,000, and the transfer will go $257,000 to debt service for previous debt levies that were not levied because there were special assessments that were available to pay for some of that debt, and that helped the council at that time keep the levy lower than it could have been. It could have been higher if we would have levied for the full debt amount. There's also debt paying for equipment, which is $40,000, or the fund balance is used for equipment, $40,000, and $25,000 for turnout gear, and $30,000 for a weather siren. The balance of the fund balance being used is $24,950, and that'll cover a contingency budget of $10,000, and the $14,950 that is being used for fund balance is actually paying for some of the operating expenditures in 2026. It still ends with a 45% of expenditures compared to fund balance at the end of 26, which is right in where the recommendation is from the state auditor's office.
And just for clarity, you're using the term fund balance and general fund as interchangeable, is that correct?
The general fund is where you're using your fund balance out of. So the general fund is your primary fund, and you have special revenue funds, you have capital improvement funds, you have debt service funds, you have equipment funds. The general fund is where most of your levy goes, and also most of your funding is coming from. And here's just a list of the changes over last year. You can see here, transfers out is the primary increase in the general fund budget. It increased from, I believe it was $7,500 in 2025 to it goes up $314,500 in 2026. And there's a list there of all the other areas that are increasing or decreasing as changes for 2026 in the proposed budget. And the proposed budget will be available on the website tomorrow. I'll send that information to Natalie right away tomorrow. Here's a more detailed look at the general fund. You can see there the changes in the revenues on the top part of that, and then the changes in the expenditures by category. In other words, general government, public safety, public works, and parks and recreation, and capital outlay. You can see public safety is the largest increase. Our sheriff's contract is going up, I believe, $37,000, which makes up the majority of that increase in the public safety costs. And it's also listing here the differences in other financing sources and uses, and the changes thereof. We are transferring in money from the gambling fund and also from the capital improvement fund to help pay for some items in 2026. So with this new proposed levy, residential properties could see an increase between 7% and 8% in their city tax liability. And that's a result of the levy and also changes in fiscal disparity, which the city really doesn't have a lot of control over. It's a formula that's done by the state. And for every city in the county or in this metropolitan area. Market values of the average home only increased about 1.8% for the 2026 budget to $452,000. That equals about $1,064 in annual city taxes. And the increase is basically $6.40 a month. That property would see in 2026. And the city tax rate goes up about 1% from 22.3 to 23.5. And the things that affect that city tax rate are the increases in the residential property values, or all property values, the increase in the fiscal disparities distribution, what the city gets out of the pool, and the decrease in the fiscal disparities contribution, what the city pays into the pool, and then of course the increase in the city levy. And then just to briefly touch on some other funds, we have a recycling center and our expenditures are higher than our revenues. We normally get additional funding from the county every year, but we cannot count on it, we can't budget for it. The 26 levy increase is $194,000 for debt, as I mentioned earlier. This includes a new debt levy of $145,000 for the road improvements and the equipment bonds. The total debt service levy is $447,822. So in capital projects, there's still $31,140 left in the building fund to maybe do some improvements to the old town hall. We are transferring $30,000 out of that fund to help pay for some expenditures in the general fund. But there are other funds available there for additional improvements. In the park improvement, we're looking at $5,000 for the 9-hole disc trail improvements, and then another $20,000 for Memorial Park. We're increasing the amount of turnout gear budget for 2026 as the chief is hiring new firefighters, and they all need their own turnout gear in 2026. And then of course we have the road improvement fund, and you can see there the improvements that we're going to do are about $560,000 for several roads in the city of Nowland, and the county is starting a project which will pay $24,175 once every 3 years until we pay our share, which is about $75,000. There is $50,000 for calcium chloride in 2026, and also $100,000 for bituminous maintenance. The equipment replacement fund, they're ordering a rescue truck, which that's what we're bonding for, with delivery expected in 2026, I believe. I don't know for sure. What, 28?
Be 18 months.
27 maybe? 27. Okay. And then there's a need for a new box on a dump truck and a replacement of a Bobcat in 2026. So here's just an example to show you an average monthly tax bill for a home. And I do a monthly so you can compare it to like your Comcast bill or your phone bill or whatever you're paying like that. So for $89 a month, you get your police and your fire protection, you get your street maintenance, you get park maintenance, you get planning and inspections, you get street improvements, you get equipment, capital improvements, administration of city activities, and debt retirement. That's it for the presentation. So what I'm asking is that the city council pass the resolution that is in your packet, adopting the preliminary levy and preliminary budget at the amounts that were listed in the resolution. Let me share that resolution.
Which is on page 106.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville, go ahead.
I would move that we adopt resolution 2025, number to be determined, adopting the preliminary 2026 levy and budget with, again, the understanding that council has agreed to go back and look at expenditures closer to the end of the year to see if we can have, implement any additional reductions.
Based on the projections that we'll have a much better analysis on.
Right.
All right, would anybody like the second, and then we've had discussion on the second. Second. Second, any discussion at all?
Mr. Mayor, I've been outspoken about my position on this even at the last meeting. I strongly feel that there's a couple of things in this budget that weren't based on what I feel were sound decisions and lacked actual data. One being first the $30,000 that we added last week for the emergency weather siren. The data that we have is old. We have had ample opportunity in the last 8 months to reach out to the manufacturer and set up a time for a scheduled decibel study. We haven't done that yet. I firmly believe that we should have that decibel study before we start to allocate any funds. We don't have an obligation to improve those systems. And the other again is the new rescue vehicle that we are bonding for. I believe it was sold on the fact that the reduced costs in residents' homeowners insurance was going to offset what their monthly or annual obligation was going to be. As I stated in those meetings, I had plans to talk with my insurance agent. I did. He made multiple calls to multiple carriers. He's an independent. I think it's important to share with you what he learned. While some do use the ISO score when determining insurance rates, in order to go for those that follow ISO, you need to have a score of 5 or better to be put into the premium rate class. I believe Chief can correct me, but we are somewhere between 9 and 10 on our ISO score. Is that correct?
I believe we're in 6 and 7.
6 and 7. So we need to get to a 5 to be in a premium class for some of those carriers. The other carriers, their policy is they have 3 categories. Within 5 miles of the fire station and less than 1,000 feet from a hydrant, within 5 miles of a fire station and greater than 1,000 feet from the fire hydrant. The first being the best, the second being the next class, and then the third class is the class we're in. And that's because we don't have fire hydrants, and unless residents tell us that they want to be hooked up to city sewer and water and bring the Met Council in here, that's not going to happen. So I'm fairly confident that the added cost of that new fire truck is not going to be offset by reduction in homeowners insurance. Just wanted to share that so people knew why I was voting the way that I'm voting.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to put a recommendation in that we add a high volume well this year as part of the budget to help work on the water supply?
I think we need to explore our options in regards to the water supply. We do have one option. I know that in the past, the fire department has been opposed to using that more economical option. At this point, I don't know if it's still available to us, but I would like to see if that's possible.
Any other discussion on the budget?
No, thank you.
Absolutely. Councilmember Bryan, do you have any comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan, go ahead.
I just, with the, we've got, yes, I agree, we have gone through the budget several times, but there's been, I would agree that there's information that, come closer to the end of the year that we can revamp and revisit this again, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity so that we can look into lower the costs to our residents for the city.
Good, and that's set for December 9th.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, that's the evening of the adoption. We're gonna have another work session.
Prior to December.
Yes.
Thank you for the
Yes.
clarification on that.
Yep.
Have we set the date for that?
No, we talked about November, early November or later November when people are available. We have not looked at dates yet. And this evening is preliminary, so.
It is preliminary
Yep,
budget.
but we need to, adopt this to get it into the county too, so that they can include it in their truth and taxation process.
I will state that as I do budgeting at work and I look at, budgeting is a projection on what we think you're gonna need. We don't spend the funding unless we have a reason to spend it. So to go back to like the emergency weather siren, if the data shows that we don't need it, then we certainly would make a motion to go forward. If you don't budget for it, you can't, you have no chance of it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Blazer.
I feel that the comment that you just made contradicts what you said at the last meeting in regards to adding that $30,000 with the study on, but we're gonna add a siren regardless.
I don't feel it contradicts anything that was stated. What I'm saying is this is the budgeted amount. Chief said he would get the survey done to say, how many do we need? I believe the need is there, but it'll justify whether the need is there. But if it doesn't make sense, we certainly wouldn't push forward. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Swenson.
Yeah, I would just like to respond, I guess, to the ISO score. I don't think that any claim was made that would be entirely offset by an ISO score improvement. The point was made that it will improve the ISO score, and it is good to improve the ISO score because the overall improvement of the ISO score will improve the insurance rates. Whether it offsets it entirely or partly, the fire department and the city still needs that fire truck. And I think the fire chief, he gave multiple presentations to the council and explained exactly why the need was there. And so I wanted to respond to that piece. And then on the siren, as I explained last meeting while I was voting with you on that, Mayor, we can't, I don't think we can wait until we have a perfect answer, because that perfect answer might cost us $250,000 or something, for multiple sirens or this or that. And so I don't think it's unreasonable to allot $30,000 for a single siren next year that we may or may not put in. We're going to decide, I think, after we get the study. And so, as has been explained to us numerous times, we can reduce the levy from here. We can't increase it. So we got to err on the side of, I guess, higher levy. And we'll reassess come November.
Or December, wherever that meeting is set.
Mr. Mayor,
Hold on one second. Mrs. Yeager, you got a comment?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as I've demonstrated in the presentation, the majority of the levy increase is for your debt service. And that's a legal obligation. And so there is not a lot of room for decreasing the operating levy. There's only $17,515. The only other way is to decrease that levy, and if you decrease expenditures, you could actually decrease the amount of fund balance. In other words, the amount of savings that you're using to pay for your expenditures.
Yes, to Councilmember Bryan's point. Right there. To decrease the fund balance.
Yeah.
All right, Councilmember Rainville, do you have one?
As far as the sirens, I did a little bit of research, and one of the things I found out that Oak Grove doesn't have any sirens. They take advantage of your phones. They have a text system that I'm assuming it's the city sends out the texts, so you have to have residents sign up. So once we get the study done and looking at what that tells us, then we can look at addition, if it says we need them, then we need to have that conversation. But we also can have a conversation, what are our other options? So it's not a given, we're gonna spend the 30, but if it's not there, you can't do it if it comes up to that.
All right, any other conversation on the budget? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve it? We already did. Councilman Rainville, we got a second from Councilman Swenson. Any other discussion? All points been brought up. Let's move it to vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay?
Okay, motion carries. So budget complete. Thank you, Ms. Yeager, for following on that. Next one is the building department. So we're on number 7, review the ordinance 2025, ordinance repealing and replacing chapter 9, section 3 of the now then city code. Is that what we have marked on for, Natalie?
Well, he'll be here, Mark will talk a little bit about it as well as Andy will.
Okay, so Andy, are you first, sir?
Sure. Thank you,
You
Mayor
got
and
it.
Council. I appreciate the opportunity tonight. Carrie unfortunately was not able to be here this evening, so I'm pinch hitting. I've reviewed the information. I'm able to answer any questions that you might have. This was an opportunity, we've had this opportunity a couple of times previously to talk about on-site septic systems, which of course serve the entire population of Nowlan. So reading through the packet, are there any additional or any questions to start with?
This is very similar to what we reviewed a couple months ago.
It is. What this really does is help clarify our roles and responsibilities for staff as well as us as your contracted building official.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Glazer, please go ahead.
a question that I had is that, that kept coming up as one of the things I was looking for. And Andy, this may not be a question for you, this may be a city fees question. When we have we're gonna be paying Rumberger Consulting $90 an hour for any non-compliance situations. Do we have means to recover that $90 an hour from a resident that is out of compliance?
We do not at this point, but Mark, maybe you can address that in the compliance with the fees and ordinances. Is that one of the things that we would be able to retrieve some of the monies on?
Yeah, so anytime we're enforcing an ordinance, there are a couple of different statutes that we can rely upon to try and collect some either unpaid service charges or special assessments. Kind of depends on which statute we would use based upon circumstance. Minnesota Statute 366.012 is the statute that would allow for the collection of unpaid service charges. Minnesota Statute 429.021 falls under the special assessment category. We use that one in particular to enforce nuisances. I believe it's subdivision 8, something to that effect. I don't recall directly off the top of my head. Has a provision that allows for the special assessment of any enforcement to abate nuisances. So it would be something that I had spoken with Ms. Johnson about previously in going through and kind of doing a comprehensive update of both zoning, nuisance, and other applicable ordinances wherein the city would include language that would require or rather allow the city to pursue the recovery of costs of abatement, including attorney's fees and any enforcement action with respect to its ordinances.
Mr. Mayor, the reason I ask, my main concern is not the individual that gets notice from the city that they have to make changes to their sewer system, but it's the one that doesn't follow through and requires an owner consultant to make multiple contacts and takes multiple hours to resolve the issue.
I appreciate the question. It was a very good question.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman, or go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Andy, would you like to address the one that we do have on compliance and how quickly they could come into compliance after your letter?
I don't have those details in front of me of which case that you're referring to.
James. That was,
The
yeah,
salt shed?
Yeah.
That one is getting drug out.
they said they have it done through by May though.
And again, I don't want to speak too much on that
Sorry.
matter. No, that's all right. I don't have the details of that case in front of me. So that one was one that did require some contacts, as far as communicating with the property owner about what the violations were and what it would take to get it back into compliance. But again, I don't have those details in front of me.
So,
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please. I was just going to ask you, can you, do we need to add something in here about non-compliance specifically to this resolution, sir?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would recommend for any resolution, case law makes clear that an indication of collection of fees via ordinance should specifically cite to the statutory provisions through which you're trying to collect a service charge, an unpaid service charge. I would also note, and maybe Andy could speak just a little bit to provision 4. It's labeled number 4 on page 136 of the packet. septic compliance and escrow amounts and how that could apply in this situation as well. I would propose a language change to 4I, which says an escrow may be required or may be allowed. I would propose that that language be changed to an escrow shall be required. And possibly if Andy could talk a little bit about how that escrow amount could possibly come into play as well.
What section was that again, please?
So it's section 4. So let's go to C, compliance inspections. Section 4, septic compliance escrow amount, temporary, alternative, at sale, transfer, or as deemed appropriate.
So thank you,
It's the-
Mayor. Oh, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
So thank you, Mayor and Council. So the escrows really are most pertinent when weather conditions don't allow a septic system to be replaced or repaired due to Minnesota weather.
Which is 6 months out of the year.
Depends on the year.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville.
do we need to ask then the attorney to add it in the appropriate place within this document so that the city is covered for any expenses when a non-compliant septic system is, when a septic system is determined to not comply? And then add that to the fee schedule and wherever else in city code needs to go.
Mark, you had mentioned, yes, it should be added. Going back to what Councilman Rainville just stated, that is there a specific spot that should be probably added before we go to approve this?
A specific spot I don't have in mind directly offhand, but I would like to address one part of what Councilmember Rainville said, which is that what I am speaking about is if there needs to be an enforcement of somebody who is non-compliant. By no means, just because you put in the provision that you can recollect attorney's fees and other associated fees in enforcing your ordinance, that does not mean you are guaranteed to collect those fees. It is simply a vehicle by which we can get into district court and make an argument before the court that we have the authority via ordinance and statute to collect those fees. What case law makes clear is if your ordinance does not contain a provision by which you statutorily can collect attorney's fees and costs associated with enforcing your ordinance, the court is hesitant and will not allow you to make such a request. So I would put it somewhere where I'm trying to peruse it as fast as I can, but I would put it in any sort of enforcement section or provision. Maybe a section could be added close to the end as maybe section 19 and bump effective date down to section 20. But that would be my advice, is to include that language for purposes of enforcement. If you need to bring an action to enforce it, that it allows us to ask the court to award fees underneath those statutory provisions.
So the question for the council, could we move forward with approving it today pending the attorney's additional recommendations? So we don't delay the full another month. Yes, would that be acceptable to you guys? Okay, do we have any other questions for Andy or for our attorney? Thank you for bringing up that very good point, Mark. I appreciate you getting a hold of this and getting this fixed before it's signed. All right, any other discussion? Well, then we will move to vote. The page is the final resolution on page CBRCA. I just gotta find the resolution. Or is it just where we're adopting on page 147?
It's an ordinance, so.
I believe 125.
It is 125, okay. I'm sorry, I was thinking it was the RCA, which was earlier, so it's on page 125. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
We need a motion.
We didn't have a motion yet? Well, I'm a little jumpy today, ain't I? Go ahead, Councilmember Bryan.
I would make a motion to approve the ordinance repealing and replacing chapter 9, section 3 of the Nowland City Code of Ordinances related to the subsurface sewage treatment system as presented with the amendment for providing the ability for the city to recoup its costs for non-compliant systems.
A second.
Second from Councilmember Rainville. All right, are we ready to vote this time? All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, we also have a 7B on here, approve First Amendment to agreement for building official service. I'm assuming you're gonna talk about that also?
I'm gonna answer questions about that. Again, I'm sorry that Carrie wasn't able to be here this evening, but I believe that's primarily about the fees that are going with that administration, is that correct?
That is correct.
So the hourly fee for, really what this pertains to is the administration, if you will, in addition to the actual inspections and permits that come along with the septic administration as it relates to the maintenance, compliance, and then also the annual reporting. Since this is in front of us all day, every day, we're very well suited to perform those duties. As far as the annual reporting to the MPCA, they require certain aspects of the installations and the overall health, if you will, of the community, as far as the number of tanks that are being installed, the number of compliance inspections that have been received, the number of non-compliant inspections that have been received. Also asking for a breakdown in that which ones are imminent health threats, which are really, really bad, and then the ones that are failing to protect groundwater. So that breakdown again through the MPCA, we're pretty well suited to do that because we do that with our other jurisdictions. So in our opinion, it would be most efficient for us to do that report.
I definitely agree with that. Any other discussion for Andy on this one? Ms. Johnson, what page would I find the 7D on?
148.
Well, I came in here tonight. There we go, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryant?
make a motion to approve the First Amendment to the agreement for building official services to include the subsurface sewage treatment system program.
Good, did everybody second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Glazer. Any other discussion? Okay, move to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
May I also ask Mark if he will put together the summary for publication that we now know needs to be done, so that we may get this published and have it in effect after it goes to the MPCA?
Yes, please.
So, get a motion to.
I think we got a nod. Is that a yes, Mark?
No problem, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Chief Miller, Fire Department, monthly report. I can't believe I missed my motion.
Mr. Mayor, council members, just giving our monthly report for month of August. August was another busy month for our department. We had a total of 23 responses, with one of those being a reported structure fire. The resident was able to control the fire with water until our units arrived in order to fully extinguish that fire. Damage was held to a minimum as the fire was discovered early. The cause of the fire was from operating equipment that was overheated. So it was in even a garage. Interesting. During August, our new tanker was delivered and has fully been put into service for response. We also performed a badging ceremony for 6 firefighters, 5 of which have completed probation, and 1 who was unable to attend a prior badging ceremony. We also participated in a mutual aid drill with the city of Ramsey that consisted of water supply and first riding company tactics. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Your new fire truck is easy.
It's beautiful. It'll be on display for Heritage Days, so we'll have that up there, and also for the fireworks.
Mr. Mayor?
We didn't get a chance to see it.
Councilmember Swenson.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have gotten any applications. I know you started advertising for.
Yep, if you haven't seen the hiring signs out there, we've pretty much papered the entire city and surrounding communities with hiring signs. We have gotten several applications. We're making a big push during Heritage Days, our Heritage Festival. I'm very confident that we're going to get some quality candidates out there.
Can you remind me, what is the goal? How many?
The goal is 5 to 10 is where we'd like to be. I think in this community and from past hiring, what we've done in the past for hiring, a solid 5 is probably going to be our sufficient goal.
Or 2025 or 2026 for the next year?
Yes, for the next year. So, and really the capacity for us to take on 10 firefighters would be that would be pretty hard for us to do. 5 for sure. If we get really good quality candidates, we'll put in the extra effort to onboard.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Sir, Sheriff's Department, up next.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the following is the Sheriff's Office report for the month of August 2025. The Sheriff's Office responded to 152 calls for service. Of those calls, 8 were to bar none, 3 alarm calls, 19 medicals, and 15 animal calls. Diving into our bar none calls, I'll give you the kind of shortened version. On the first, we had a juvenile runaway call. On the 6th, another juvenile runaway call. On the 10th, we responded for 2 juveniles who had run away after assaulting staff. There was 1 minor injury to staff. The juveniles were located in a return facility. Both of them were taken to the hospital by staff of bar none for evaluation, and 1 of them was charged with assault in that incident. On the 19th, we responded for a mental health call. We were able to mediate that, and the juvenile stayed on site. On the 19th, we responded for another mental health call. That juvenile was transported to the hospital by ambulance. On the 22nd, another mental health call. That one we mediated the situation. The juvenile stayed at the facility. On the 23rd, we responded for an assault report. On that one juvenile was arrested for assaulting staff and transported to the juvenile facility, charged with 5th-degree assault. Moving on to other calls for service within the community, on the 1st at 12 p.m. in the 8300 block of Viking, deputy made a traffic stop on a vehicle due to the male driver having federal arrest warrants for narcotics and weapons-related charges. That male was taken into custody without incident. During an inventory search of his vehicle, deputies yielded additional narcotics. That male was transported to jail on the warrant and will be charged by our drug task force for the additional narcotics that were located in the vehicle. On the 2nd, in the 22800 block of Jarvis Street, a deputy responded to a single vehicle crash. Female driver there failed field sobriety tests and was arrested for DWI and transported to jail. On the 4th, again in the 8300 block of Viking Boulevard, deputies assisted our drug task force along with out-of-county drug task forces in executing a search warrant there. 2 people were taken into custody on that warrant, 1 who was the subject of the warrant and another who had unrelated warrants stemming from the Department of Corrections. On the 15th, in the 18600 block of Burns Parkway, deputies responded with fire in Alina for an 83-year-old male who was not breathing. Life-saving efforts were attempted, but the male was declared deceased at the scene. Our criminal investigation division and medical examiner responded, and that death was determined to be of natural causes. On the 31st, in the 8100 block of 181st Avenue, a deputy responded for a burglary report at a residence under construction. Some tools were stolen out of a storage unit that was on that site. Deputies were able to identify 2 suspects and recover some of the tools that were stolen. Those tools were turned back over to the owner, and both suspects are currently being charged for burglary and theft. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rainville.
Lieutenant, I have a question on the 831 on the 181st. Were those suspects now then residents? Or-
I don't believe so, but don't hold me 100% because I don't have it in front of me. I read through the reports, but I can't say with certainty where they were from.
All right, thank you.
Any questions for? Hearing none, thank you very much, sir, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to planning and zoning. So, Ms. Nash, would you cover the monthly report on this?
I'm happy to, but I'll just instead stand for questions on any items that were in the report.
I think your report was a good update, that's what I think the report was. I personally have any questions, does anybody have any questions on page 163 or 164? No questions, let's move on to 10B then. The review and approval of the proposed ordinance 2025 XX repealing and replacing cannabis zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do not get many of these types of requests, but this is a property owner-driven application for an amendment to your ordinances. So the typical kind of way you see that would be a rezoning, where somebody's rezoning, changing the zoning map. In this case, it's changing the zoning text. So Matt and Rhiannon Paradise are here today. They've submitted an application for an amendment to your zoning ordinance to permit cannabis cultivation in the rural residential agricultural zoning district. A copy of all the information that they submitted supporting that is included in your packet. You previously adopted your cannabis ordinance back in the fall of 2024. At that time, cultivation was limited to the industrial zoning district. They have received preliminary approval for a license to cultivate cannabis from the State Office of Cannabis Management. If this ordinance amendment is adopted, they would then still need to apply for an interim use permit where it would go through a public hearing. Everybody, the Planning Commission and the council would look at exactly their proposal for how they would manage and operate the site, where on the property it would be located, et cetera, et cetera. And you, if approved, you would issue an interim use permit for cannabis cultivation. So there is a step 2 for them if they're successful tonight in getting through this step 1. So the draft amendment before you tonight would accomplish a few things. It would list cannabis cultivation as a possible interim use in the RRA zoning district. That zoning district does occupy the vast majority of your city. So we did, in working with the Planning Commission, another provision in there is that the IUP can only be granted on property that's at least 20 acres in size or greater, and that is owner occupied and owner operated. And then also includes the same buffers that would be in your industrial district.
Mr. Nash, we got a question from Councilman.
Ms. Nash, can I ask how we came to the determination of 20 acre minimum?
So that was largely driven by the Planning and Zoning Commission members in their discussion at their meeting the other week. The draft ordinance went to them, as I originally drafted, with a 10-acre minimum, but many of them felt like they were more comfortable with a larger minimum. You have a lot of residences that are kind of in, some are in platted neighborhoods, some are in kind of, I'm gonna call them kind of quasi neighborhoods that are on about 10-acre parcels. So going down to a 10-acre size, the Planning Commission wasn't comfortable with, so they recommended 20 acres.
So
What's the recommendation?
really kind of a public safety, possibly looking ahead.
Yeah, they were trying to look at it as, they wanted people who were legitimately, possibly in agriculture to begin with, or the potential to do that, rather than somebody in a neighborhood coming up with that idea and then having that operation in what's otherwise a residential neighborhood. You're kind of unique in that your RRA district encompasses, again, most of the city and kind of blends those agricultural focuses along with those residential focuses.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Swanson, please.
under section 4, you have all cultivation shall occur not less than 500 feet from any property line. That seemed like a long ways from the property line, so I did some math, or not did some math, I Googled it. I Googled how many feet across 20 acres, if it were a square, would be, and it's less than 1,000 feet. And so if you just have a 20-acre plot, you couldn't even possibly cultivate it because there is no 500 feet from the edge of the property line. Is that something else that the planning and zoning sort of stuck in there, or is that like a common thing?
No, that was something they also stuck in there, and you're right, depending on the shape of the property, it might be difficult for somebody to be able to find a suitable location at 500 feet.
Well, I don't think there's any configuration of a 20-acre or less property that would allow that. If you had 40 acres and only used 20 acres, then maybe, but there's no configuration of a 20-acre property that could comply with this ordinance. Am I wrong in that?
No, I think you're probably correct.
Seems a little
So-
silly.
Decreasing that might make sense, or altering that slightly to be, say, 500 feet from a residence, or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly get the idea. Like, I don't want someone with 20 acres sticking it right in the corner, right next to some family house or something who doesn't want to smell it or be around it. But 500 feet seems prohibitively excessive.
It's definitely not. But in this particular case, you guys own 40 acres, right? So that 20 acre would not be.
I still,
I'm not a fan of writing something into an ordinance that's not even able to be complied with. Why even write it in there?
Right.
Probably not applicable, yes, it should be removed.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Randall?
so the question would be then, under 12H, should we increase the 20 to a larger acreage, which then would allow you to have 500 instead of
What page
500?
are you on now?
Oh, page 169.
Councilmember Glazer?
I would err towards the side where Councilmember Swenson is leading, where we still allow for 20-acre parcels, but change those setbacks to a reasonable and realistic number that allows them to 20 acres.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead now.
may I make a suggestion
Yes,
that
please.
condition within that section be changed to all cultivation shall occur not less than 200 feet from any property line
Those are going to be my recommendations.
and not less than 500 feet from any residence, any offset residence, in case somebody's property is unusually close.
Because you've got 500 feet for public parks, 500 feet for daycares. So 200 feet would make more sense to me from a property line. Now, if you had 200 feet within a 20-acre parcel, how many acres would be cultivatable or?
That is a really hard math question.
Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Well, hold that one thought, go ahead, Councilmember Glazer.
I think you were alluding to the possible cultivation of actual ground with regards to cannabis. And I think what you're gonna find, and I have a little bit more background on this because Paula my wife, as a commercial investor at the Connexus, serves the cannabis cultivation market. And all of that is gonna be done within typically a structure that is conditioned where they're farming 24/7, 365. So,
An indoor.
yes. Maybe that's what we're going to.
Ms. Nash, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, that is actually not where I was going. What I was going to say is that the way that the OCM rules are, the amount of area that can be under cultivation is actually really small. So we're talking, depending on the type of license, as small as half an acre of outdoor cultivation, which is what the applicants would be able to do under the license that they've applied for. And given that the microprocessing, I think I got that one right, that's what you're applying for?
Yeah, the microbusiness.
Microbusiness is less intensive of an application process. You could see more of those than you would the larger operations being proposed.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Swenson, please.
I'm not gonna stand by this math, but I just did some math. I believe if it were a perfect square of 20 acres and there's a 200 property line offset, there'd still be 284,000 square feet that are able to be cultivated in a acre is 43,000 square feet. So what is that? That's 5, 6, 7 acres.
Yeah, I'm at about 6.5. If it's a perfect square.
Thank you, sir. So that would be enough, given, so that 200 feet probably makes a lot of sense. So this should be changed from 500 feet, no property line to that.
Mr. Mayor, I will say that is assuming that it is a perfect square, which would maximize the amount of area. If the shape is a long rectangle, for example, that 200-foot setback would have a disparate impact on the cultivatable area of those properties. Just to make the council aware of that.
That is true.
All I can say is 200 feet is probably makes a lot more sense than 500 feet. So is that exactly where we want to go? I think it would be a good interim solution, and it could be adjusted later.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Swenson.
I think that's a good point. I mean, if someone really wants to cultivate something, they can come in here and tell us why 200 feet isn't fair. But just on the face of it, I think it's fair. But there
Keeps it
are,
away from the property line. I think that meets that intent.
I certainly can see circumstances where it's not fair if somebody has a long rectangular property of even 80 acres that wouldn't comply. So, but I think it's reasonable.
Back to you, Ms. Nash. Is there any more that needs to be discussed on, we're currently on 10B.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything else. unless you have any questions for the Paradises for the interview this evening.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryant.
if we're changing the setbacks and no one could, Ms. Nash, could you explain, is there more specifics regarding the Minnesota rules as far as under security and the required security measures, what lighting would be and how that would affect our ordinance regarding lighting up the property so that it's not, the light is not affecting neighboring properties and getting into the street and all that kind of thing is.
Mr. Mayor?
Ma'am, go ahead.
I'll defer a little bit to our city attorney, who's the expert of all things cannabis at the moment. But I think that's something that we would look at during the interim use permit process for any given application and see what they're proposing to do, how they're proposing to do their lighting, and place appropriate conditions surrounding that in that situation. But I invite the city attorney to jump in if he knows anything more.
Yes, thank you. So just to address this issue, this is governed by the Minnesota administrative rules that were put in place and approved by an administrative law judge with respect to the Office of Cannabis Management and Regulation of Cannabis Businesses, particularly 9810.1500 subpart 10 deals with lighting within the context of security. It says a cannabis business, and that phrase in the rules means any cannabis business, could be cultivation, retail, whatever, must maintain all lighting in good working order inside and outside the business's premises in any temporary cannabis event. Lighting must deter nuisance and criminal activity by allowing observers to see and cameras to record any activity within a radius of at least 20 feet around all entrances and exits. So that is the requirement, is 20 feet of lighting. I think that Planner Nash's recommendation of having a requirement of where that lighting stops as a part of a condition, so as to not cause nuisances for neighboring properties, would make sense, especially considering we do have 200-foot setbacks. If we think about where the crop cultivation line would be on a property, considering you would have that large setback, really anything short of that setback amount in theory should make it so that you're not creating a nuisance to any neighboring property. So that's my answer with respect to lighting. While I have the floor, if I may, Mr. Mayor, just bring up one other thing to the council's attention.
Yes, please.
With respect to cannabis cultivation, Planner Nash is correct that there are a couple of different ways to go about cultivating. The two main licenses that would be considered would be a cultivator's license, which for outdoors would allow for up to 2 acres of cannabis flowering plant cultivation. The other would be the micro business license, which sounds like that is what the applicants in this case have preliminary approval from the Office of Cannabis Management. That license allows for a smaller use. I kind of call it the one-stop shop because you can do a little bit of everything. It's the jack of all trades license. And so it's generally reduced capacity, but you get to do a lot more. That reduced capacity with respect to flowering outdoor cultivation would be 1/2 acre. So the council, if it's so wanted, if it's trying to limit the amount of area that could be cultivated within these 20+ acre parcels, could limit it either to cultivators licenses, which would be 2 acres, or limit it down to your micro business, which would allow for 1/2 acre, and then place conditions that you could not do retail or any other uses. In this zoning district, it could just be for cultivation. The caveat there is that the council needs to remember, pursuant to 342.13 Minnesota statute, you do have to allow for the full use of all cannabis businesses at least somewhere, which sounds like you're doing an industrial, so you're good. So you kind of have some control over what you would like to do in your RRA district with respect to cultivation, because you're allowing the full scope of cultivation to occur in your industrial district. You don't have to allow it in the RRA, and you can allow it in a limited fashion if you so desire, because you allow it in the full scope in the industrial.
Hey, did you get all that
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Glazer, go ahead, please.
Mr. Alsites, what are the containment requirements for outdoor cultivation? When you're talking about essentially a controlled substance, you've got minors that could get access to that.
It's a great question, and I've actually had this question come up in the context of if it could trigger police calls and excessive use of law enforcement services. I know that's an ordinance that you all have contemplated and addressed in the past. There are pretty stringent security requirements with alarm systems and security cameras that are outlined in that 9810.1500 administrative rule. And there were a lot of fail safes built into the statute. How they'll play out practically is yet to be seen, obviously, as this is all relatively new. But one of those fail safes even includes that if there is a trip of an alarm, it creates an automatic trigger dispatch out to law enforcement for response. There are required backups for the alarm should there be power outages. So the full details, I could go through and read them, but I think it would be somewhat painstaking at this point. But it would be in 9810.1500, which kind of has all of those fencing, lighting, security camera, alarm requirements for the property.
Councilmember Blazer, did that answer your question? It's got a pretty good write-up on what is required, and I think it's pretty extensive. From when I read this, I didn't know it was that extensive.
And Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainbow, go ahead, please.
to Attorney Allsett, so it's up to the state, though, to do all of the inspections. We're not encumbered by anything, correct?
Correct. This is distinct from, the only way that you get drawn into a cannabis inspection is if you are, as the city, administering your own retail registration and compliance checks, which is distinct from cultivation. The rest of the enforcement is done by the Office of Cannabis Management. What I would recommend, however, is that you create a condition for the IUP or CUP that gets issued, depending upon how you're doing it, that you comply with all administrative rules that are put forth for cannabis businesses in the Office of Cannabis Management. That way, if you're found to not be in compliance by the city, you could always do a revocation of the IUP if the state is dragging their feet. So that is just one condition I would recommend the city put in place.
Thank you. Clarifying my statement also is that we will be responsible for the sheriff's office calls. If there are calls, alarm
If they have
calls.
excessive calls?
Yeah.
But it would also fall under the nuisance thing if that's the case. Asking one more question, so Mark, as you recommended for the IUP, does that mean the city would do inspections or has the ability to do inspections?
It could be drafted that way. I mean, you could make that a condition of the IUP is that the city is able to send out an individual. We have that zoning authority, right? We cannot revoke their state license, but we can revoke an IUP. So we could say that the city is able to send out an employee or a representative thereof or law enforcement. And if they determine that there is not an alarm system installed, if there is not proper lighting, et cetera, that the city could unilaterally, without the state putting aside the whole state license issue, that the city would be able to act by revoking the IUP, which would be required for the underlying use. So that would be my position on how I would want to address it for the city.
Thank you for the clarification. Councilman Rainbow.
Mr. Mayor, Attorney Allsett. So the question I have is the city able to review any reports that the state has? If I have this business and I've got 15 calls and there's this or that, is the city able to look at those discretions or violations? Because other words, we wouldn't know of them in order to go back and revoke an IUP or CUP. Because we can only revoke an IUP or CUP based on violations of that IUP or CUP.
Understood, and I think
access to state records.
Understood, and I think that's a great question, Council Member. The clarity that we have from OCM, every correspondence with them is clear as mud. There is no indication in the administrative rules that municipalities may request records of the state. And again, my position is not that we rely upon the state records. We can have that as an avenue for revocation. Obviously, if the state revokes their license or suspends their license, that is something that will hinder their ability to continue the operation as the license is required by statute for operation. My point is that if we take in essence, adopt by reference the state administrative rules and indicate that an employee of the city or law enforcement is able to make its own determination based upon the rules and whether the state rules have been violated, that the municipality or the city would be able to then revoke the IUP, which it has the zoning authority to do.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Swenson.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it doesn't mean that we have to act on it or oversee this cannabis farm if it does go in place. It just gives us the ability, if the state is dragging its feet. Like a specific example, if whoever is running this thing, not necessarily you guys, but anyone else, you know, refuses to put up a light and we're in a fight with you about putting up a light, we don't have to go crying to the state to go do our enforcing. We could just revoke the IUP. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to have that ability. I'm not overly concerned about how we would go about finding all the violations, because if we were to use that, I think it would be used due to some violation that the city is getting complaints about, and that, you know, necessarily would be sort of public. And then just further speaking, I guess, in support of this motion, you know, I had a concern about, you know, stupid teenage kids sneaking onto the farm and stealing weed, because that's something we would have done. But
Fire alarm system, security surveillance, lighting.
so I did actually have that concern. And then I read this rule, and I would encourage anyone from the city who's watching or listening to this to go and look at that rule in our packet. Like the requirements here are extensive. I mean, this looks like more secure than a prison. So this satisfied any concerns that I had, and I'm actually shocked that anyone would open cannabis farms with all these requirements, because it seems super expensive. But you know, it's alleviated any concerns that I had. Yeah, those are the 2 points I wanted to raise.
Any other discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I understand marijuana is not legal in the state of Minnesota. I'm not in favor of this. I see it as we're doing spot zoning. We're giving it to all RRA 20 acres or above, but then we need to have them come in and do an IUP or a CUP. And we're spot zoning something that initially was designated to just the industrial areas. And so I support this.
Mr. Mayor.
Hold on, Councilmember Briggs.
Well, that's all right. I'm gonna wait for Councilmember Swenson because he may bring up the research that he.
Councilmember Swenson.
Yeah, what Councilman Glazer just referenced, I did do sort of a lot of research on this, and one additional benefit that I found of rezoning, or not, well, yeah, rezoning, I guess, allowing an IUP or CUP, is that the portion of the property that's used for cannabis cultivation turns into industrial and commercial property, and that's taxed differently than agricultural. And their tax burden for those acres increases. So the more property we get cultivating cannabis within the city of Nowlin increases the amount of taxes those property owners are paying, and theoretically decreases the amount that the rest of the residents are paying. I mean, unless we increase the levy. But I mean, there are numerous benefits, tax benefits, from allowing the cannabis cultivation. So I don't know if that hit the point.
Is it, yeah, I'm referring to the email that you sent out in regards to the research you did, and I think, I'm not opposed to it.
Councilmember Brian, do you have any comments to add? Okay, so right now, I believe the answer is we're on, I lost my page now. I flipped to 182 as we were talking about security. Can anybody help me find what?
166 is what we would first vote on.
There we go. 166 is the first vote we have, and that's review and approve the proposed ordinance 2025, repealing and replacing cannabis zoning. So this is all about zoning. It's not approving anything but the zoning side. So the one recommended change was to go from 500 feet from a property line to 200. Other than that, was there any other recommended changes or any other discussion using favor?
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Nash, go ahead.
as part of that previous discussion, I had also suggested that you could do 500 feet from an offsite residence as well,
From an off-site residence, please,
A neighbor,
a neighbor.
a neighbor's house.
yes, please. Okay, so then were the two changes then that we have. Any other discussion?
And Mr. Mayor, I
Sir.
think the last possible consideration is the scope of if the council wants it to be a full 2 acres of cultivation, allowing it via a cultivator's license, or if the council wants to limit it to a half acre of cultivation, which would come via a micro business license with conditions that you may only do cultivation and none of the other uses such as manufacturing, retail sale, etc.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, duly noted. Councilmember Swenson.
Yeah, I would just like to speak in favor of not putting a limitation of just a half acre on it due to what I had already pointed out about the security in that rule. I don't think.
On the micro side, as what Mark was saying?
Maybe I misunderstood what you were saying.
There was two different things.
Limiting it to just a half acre and not allowing the 2 acre cultivation? Is that what you were comparing, Mark?
Yeah, the distinction is that your cultivator's license allows for up to 30,000 square feet of indoor or 2 acres of outdoor flowering. Your micro business license, if you did the interim use permit for the micro business license, it would in effect limit it to 5,000 square foot indoor or half an acre outdoor. And so my point here is for consideration of don't just say we want to allow cultivation as a use. I would tie the interim use permit to the license type, either having it be a half acre in a micro business with conditions is all you can do is cultivate, or having it tied to a cultivator's license, which gives you the full 2 acres outdoor.
So two different distinctions is what he was trying to. So I think his recommendation makes sense. I think it should be included in there. And it's determined in the IUP on which direction they want to go. They would select that.
So it's not something we have to.
It's not part of the ordinance, it would be part of the IUP.
That's a good question. All right, Mark, would it be part of the IUP or the ordinance? That's a good question.
It would be a part of the ordinance. So you would amend it to allow new interim use as follows. And you have 3 options. You can do just the cultivator's license, 2 acres. You can do just the micro business license limited to cultivation, which is half an acre. Or if you're going to shoot for allowing the cultivator's license, which is 2 acres, you might as well allow the micro businesses with the condition that they only can do cultivation to also come in, because that half acre is less than the 2. So in the instance that, we have the applicants before us today, they've applied for and received a micro business license, is my understanding. If you tied the use just to a cultivator's license, yes, the amount of area they want to use is less than 2 acres, but the license they've received is distinct from the interim use that you would allow. So my advice is if you want to allow up to 2 acres, and that's the policy decision you want, the practical way to make that happen is amend section 4 of this ordinance, which amends section 11-3-5D to allow 2 interim uses, which is cultivator's license and micro business license limited to cultivation.
Makes sense. We would go with his recommendation to amend the ordinance.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Nash.
this is directed to the city attorney. Under that recommendation, I think we would also have to, I'll forget that. I'm thinking of a different part of the ordinance that doesn't matter anymore. But would an alternative be to where it's 12I, say that the owner of the property shall have a cultivator license or have a micro business license, or list both of them there? Would that be possible instead?
I would be okay with that, with the caveat that there is a condition that says if you have a micro business license, one of the conditions is you are limited to only cultivation. I don't want retailers popping up in the middle of the RRA district, and I'm sure the council doesn't. And I know that's not the intent of the applicants. I think I see them shaking their heads. But I just want to make sure we don't create a technical loophole for a future applicant to come through and to open up a business that the city council is not envisioning whatsoever So make sure that that caveat is carved out in there as a condition on the IUP, that if you got the micro license, you're only cultivating with that micro license. And then wherever else you've got it in industrial or wherever, you get the full gambit of what you get in a micro license, your one-stop shop. You get to do it elsewhere.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Swenson?
Do we need to include in this ordinance change, what we're doing here, what we're talking about right now, the sort of duplicating the state's authority to, you know, comply with rule, whatever that was, as part, well, no, that'd be a condition of the IUP, right? That wouldn't go in the ordinance? I'm sorry.
Either or.
Half a thought there.
Either or, I wouldn't hate to see it in the ordinance, just so it's in there clear that the city incorporates by reference administrative rule. It's 9810.1500, and I'll see if there's any other applicable rules too, and I can communicate with Planner Nash about that, and then say that the city reserves the right to have an employee or law enforcement contracted with the city to make a determination if such provisions have been violated for purposes of revoking the IUP. But I would definitely want to see it in ordinance and as a condition. Let's just hammer them over the head with it so it's very clear that we're not relying upon the state. It's been made clear to everyone. It's in the ordinance. It's in the condition. It's crystal clear.
So we've got 200 feet, 500 feet from a neighbor, the two different types of licenses, and then mirroring the state rules. Are those the four changes?
Yes, with the caveat that I want to make sure this makes it in there that your micro business is limited to cultivation for the two license types.
I'll be happy. Okay. any
Mr.
other-
Mayor,
Oh, all right. Councilmember Ramos first.
I just have a question. So, on page 176, it talks about the canopy. So, paragraph 4, B, for outdoor mixed light facilities, outdoor cultivation may occur in a greenhouse or a hoop house. So what are the requirements for that? I understand the requirements for a building. What are the security requirements for external growing of it? Am I missing what those security requirements are?
My understanding that the security requirements, council member, are kind of blanket across the business types. If you remember, I indicated previously that the language in the security requirements refers to cannabis businesses, which both in the administrative rule in chapter 342, the cannabis statutes refers to the 13 or so different business license types.
Thank you.
So I believe the answer is on page 182. It's the same requirements. It still needs an alarm system. It still needs video surveillance. It needs lights. It needs locks.
That'd be correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Any other questions at all?
Mr. Mayor?
Ma'am?
The city attorney had given that language for the end of section 4, paragraph 12, that the whole city shall incorporate by reference admin rule number, blah, 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 that he's going to provide us some language for. I would like to add that as well to the end of the section on section 2 and section 3.
What page is section 2 that we're talking about?
That is, section 2 is your commercial district, section 3 is your industrial district. If we have that language, Mr. Attorney, embedding now into the RRA, we should put it in those other ones.
Agreed.
Well, I would move.
On page 166? Is that where you're at right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you make a motion, please?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance amending the city of now then zoning ordinance related to cannabis with, as is laid out here, and the changes we have discussed. Should I list them?
It would be great if you could remember all
Sure.
5 of them, or we're all going to work with.
Sure, we've decided to eliminate the 500 feet from any property rule line and replace that with 200 feet from the property line, adding also 500 feet from any neighboring house.
Also, putting in there the two distinct types of cultivator's license, grower's license, and the requirements for each. And then the language adopting the Minnesota rules regarding the security requirements and other requirements. Everything? I think so.
And then also that a person holding a microbusiness license shall only utilize the property for cultivation.
Yes. It's limited to that. All right, city attorney, did that cover everything that you believe for changes? Did we miss anything?
Sounds like it to me. That sounds good.
Okay, so with that, we've got a motion. Does anybody want to do a second? I'll do the second. So I will second your motion for an ordinance amending the city's now then zoning ordinance related to cannabis.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember,
question for Councilmember Swenson, we might as well just include, can we just include the approval of the publication of the ordinance in the motion?
sure. Oh, yes. Yes. Good call. Any other discussion before we vote? Okay, no other discussion. All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay, so we are moving to 10C at this time. Ms. Nash, what do we need to know on 10C?
That was,
You covered that as part of it.
Filling your president, so it's all covered, E and C.
Yep.
Damn, that then, you really didn't know. I didn't learn that, it was two separate days.
Do we have a summary for publication, drafted, Planner Nash? Have I done that already? Have you done that? Does it need to be done?
I already did that.
Excellent.
Okay, ma'am, Ms. Johnson, city clerk updates, please.
Mr. Mayor and council members, we have the receptionist position is been posted. We've got, I think, 8 or 9 applications as of today. It closes on Friday. The lieutenant and I had a meeting with Bar None along with Attorney Rupee and Planner Nash. We were having some discussions about what type of IUP CDP that they need. You guys can jump in anytime if you'd like either, but I think it went really well. And I feel like they're gonna go with the paperwork. Cindy, or Planner Nash has now gotten over the requirements of what they needed, what type of escrow that they were gonna need to get started. So I'm hoping to follow up with them by Monday if I haven't heard anything.
That's great news.
Same with the ordinance reviews. You guys are seeing a lot of emails coming through with different things. Delia's been working pretty diligently with Attorney Alsites, trying to get the ordinances all current and up to date with what is a state statute or different rules that had changed. And as they're coming through, we will get those to you for approval. Your recycling day is the 20th. It's 7:30 to 7:30 a.m. I know we asked that you can be there to help volunteer if you're able. I had a question about the Heritage Festival, whether or not you want the city represented there as a booth or just visiting, or how you'd like that done as a council this year.
So you're looking for feedback right now.
I am.
Do we have any recommendations for the city on how we want it represented?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Brown?
I believe in the past we've done it both ways. We've had a booth and we've had people, tables set up, and we've had staff and the booth was staffed, and we had like water testing kits that they could check out, and then other times we've just done nothing.
Any recommendation from yourself on how you'd like to see that?
I don't necessarily want to, I think right now the staff is being involved as far as participating and moving things around and helping out. I would think, and I believe they're recognized on the banner that the city of Nelson's been helping out. I don't necessarily want to, I would say if city staff wanted to volunteer their time at a booth, they certainly could, but I don't want to necessarily go pay for the expense of staffing a booth during Heritage Fest.
Councilman Blaze?
Ms. Johnson, do we have any type of formal name tag for council members and mayor, so that while we're attending city-sponsored functions like the Heritage Festival, that we can wear those so people see us wearing it. Maybe they don't know us by face.
We do not, but we could certainly make one.
Or a sash.
Mr. Mayor,
Well, Miss Congeniality, she's the one to wear the sash, I'm not gonna wear
I
the
will wear the
sash.
sash.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Brown.
to follow up from that, in the past, we have had some sort of badges made at, council expense. If they wanted a badge, there was at least a template, I don't know, and there was someplace down in Columbia Heights or something that had a way to do it, so.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Riddle.
in previous years, I've had them made and paid for them for the newer council members. I haven't done it recently, and I don't mean just last fall's election. And I did it through Sterling at, in Anoka across from the high school. It was a gold badge, but it has I don't think, it doesn't have the new logo on it, because I did it when I was first elected. So, but that's where I went, and I did donate some of those at one time.
So,
Falling off the wagon on that one.
Ms. Johnson, is that something you could look into? And if we want the council members to pay for their own badges, they can pay for their own badges.
Yes, we will get pricing and then send it out, and let me know. I'll make sure that we can get them by the 20th as well.
I certainly do not know every resident by name, so it would be, I think it would be a great concept to have a badge.
Mr. Mayor.
And you can have a sash. so-
Thank you. I didn't mean to cut off. I don't, do you have any more to add? I just had that there to show that.
No, I'm trying to think of Sandra Bullock's character from Miss Congeniality.
Saying council member Swenson. Anyways, I do have a question for the longer term council people here. When we were present, have been present at the Heritage Festival, has it served, as a benefit to the residents? Do they like come up and engage us, but they might not otherwise? I mean, is there some measurable thing in your memory where there's a distinct positive that comes from that, or is it just sort of standing there handing stuff out?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Swenson, I believe there is a benefit that people, residents like to be able to see you there and have conversations with you. I don't know if we would agree to have it for just certain hours, and we could try to go in and each take an hour or two, something like that. The other thing is that the city, was it last year or the year before now, that staff did it and had the giveaways and everything?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay. I think the residents like it. We could ask Natalie with advance notice that we could do some, depending on staffing, is that we could do some hour switches, come in a little bit late, work so many hours on this day, for the festival. If we do have a booth, one of the things I would like to ask is that I can work with staff. So we work on the Veterans Memorial, and part of it is advertising to the residents to get information about residents about residents that served in the military and their history and things like that, so that we can collect that. And that would be a good opportunity to do that.
Are you recommending to use staff time to do that, or council members' time?
As far as staffing the booth? Well, I'd like to see staff. I think it's important that residents also see our staff. If council can give a couple hours. In the past, I've never been able to staff it because I'm co-chair of the event. This would be my first opportunity to sit in the booth and talk to residents, and I look forward to doing that for, not a full day, but a couple hours.
So is there a sign up for council members if they want to sit in the booth? Do we have said?
Well, at this point for the 25, we don't have anything set, so that would be up to council to decide tonight what they want to do. Do they want to have something there where we have our staff there, and it's by staff, it's our administrative staff. We either choose to compensate them with overtime, or we ask them to adjust their hours. That might not be possible with training, it's upcoming training, and we're down a person. So, and then for council, we can put together a schedule of who wants to work what hours. Natalie has always posted the event that there's a possibility there would be a quorum. There's never, you have an individual conversation with the residents about something. You're not typically standing next to each other, three of us at a time talking to a resident, so.
It's
Quorum
something
hasn't
we
been
would
an
need to
issue,
avoid.
but it would be
We need to avoid that.
correct. And if you post it, then if it happens, but it's posted, so.
Would everybody okay if we, from the council side, be willing to do like 2 hours to sit in a chair? Is there a sign that says City of Nowland, City Council, something like that? But if everybody's willing to do 2 hours, something like that, and you can select your times, and then I would just take whatever's left. My plan is to be there, so I demand to do whatever it is.
Mr. Mayor,
So yes, sir, go
as
ahead.
Councilmember Rainville knows, I may or may not be at Heritage Fest, that's usually my anniversary weekend, so. I mean, it
Just
depends,
sort of
it
priorities.
depends on how things work out, but I'm just saying I may or may not be available to take a shift.
And we would certainly understand, yeah. It's a volunteer, I mean, if you can't do it, you can't do it. So is that, Ms. Johnson, could you form a list for the council members and send it out, and we would select a time of 2 hours? Does that work for everybody, if you are here? If you're not, that work for you, right?
Yes, sir.
2 hours?
Okay, I can do that. I would like a little bit of clarification. Can it be one booth then?
Yes.
Between the city and the council, meaning that they could be done?
Yes.
Okay.
We did one booth, like, I don't know if there's a business expo. There was a okay, at one point in time, there was a business expo, and we were just part of that. We just had a table that, for the city.
Okay.
That
And
and
Sue
that-
Pilon is just waiting for me to get back to her as to what we want to do.
So Councilmember Rainville had a recommendation to have city staff there, so would that be Saturday and Sunday? You need,
No,
you need
it's
staff?
just Saturday.
Just Saturday is
So our
requested.
public works staff works throughout the week, little by little, to clean the park and have it, and then move bleachers and things like that. The administrative staff, it would just be that Saturday.
Saturday.
And we could limit, so the breakfast is 8:30 to 10:30. And then from 10:30 on are the food vendors and all of the other activities. And then there will not be a dinner under the tent this year. They're gonna go with food vendors, and then the fireworks. So we could decide to do it starting after the breakfast, so go 10:30 to 4. And if we fill a council member during that slot, if there is a time period in it, there isn't one, there isn't one. But staff would be there. I would ask that we allow Natalie to determine whether or not they're able to adjust hours, and if not, then that they be compensated with overtime. Natalie would not get overtime, but whatever of the other two are, and if they're even available.
Well, being that we're short on staff, there's some budget that we're not using, correct?
Correct. So,
So one, you'd have to ask once they're available.
if they're available and are interested, and you can't ask them to volunteer time. That's just,
I think we can say we're gonna pay them.
Yeah.
And then because we're short, if you want to finish your statement on that, would overtime be acceptable?
Yeah.
Do you have a concern on that? So then overtime would be available. I know you're trying to make ends meet, as a little bit short staffed.
And just so you all know, I won't be available until after noon, so I don't have one of the girls do it earlier in the morning.
And you may find that, and Mary, you can maybe talk about this, but would it be beneficial to have somebody in the city booth at 8 o'clock in the morning to help give information and guide people along? I don't know.
no. The staff, the Heritage Festival staff does a good job of telling everybody, all the vendors, and, where they should.
So city staff starting after breakfast, and then they would carry out till what, 5 o'clock, is that?
I don't know if we need to go with that. I would say 4, it should be.
And then with that, you'll work a schedule out where the city council members can sit in there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay. Any other,
Yep, my next update was the overlay, and you each got an email from, Engineer Nelson, kind of giving you the update on that and kind of the process as to how it's going to go. Just to let the public know is that once the work is completed and we tabulate all the costs, the council will then consider the adoption of the assessments, and that would get a letter to each property owner it'll say what the final assessment amount is and the instructions for paying it off if they choose to do so before it's certified to the county. And it's gotta be to the county, I think, early to mid-November is what it says, so. We've had a couple of calls about the assessment, so I just wanted to make sure you all understood what the process is, so if you get calls from any residents, you know when it's gonna be coming into play. The Humane Society, I believe I also sent you out a letter from the Humane Society saying at the end of the year, they will not be taking any more at-large animals. Lieutenant Mangater has been working, trying to find different places because it's affecting all the cities that they.
All in Upper County, right?
All 8 of our contract cities, I know for sure, I can't say about the PDs in the southern half of the county who they use, but all 8 of our contract cities were with the Humane Society.
So does that mean you get to just keep all the animals in?
Well, it means that we would probably tell people, if there's not a new contract in place for each city, that, sorry, we have nothing that we can do with your found dog, because there's no contract in place, so.
So as a city, are we looking, or as a sheriff's department, we're looking?
I sent one possibility, and I don't know if you've reached out to them, our patrol division only, so far has been able to look at one possibility as a replacement. And off the top of my head, I don't even remember what it's called, but I remember forwarding it.
Yeah, we do have it. I know Julio's working at contacting them, and then there were also to contact a couple of their cities to see what they're doing that are not under contract with the county.
So we're looking into options.
Yes. And then the last thing was the resolution that I dropped on your desk today that I sent you because I received an email today from a person who would like to donate some ball field improvements. We just need to accept the donation. What they were doing is some grading, some raking, some leveling out of the field and just kind of making sure that things get updated, make the ball field a little bit better.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Brian.
the bullpens, probably haven't ever been rebuilt, so you're basically, there's large drop off, so there's no place in there, as well as in the batting cage that it hasn't been maintained, it hasn't been worked through, so it's just filling in and repacking, just like we
Sure, thank you.
last year we basically rebuilt the entire infield. So there's just some more spots to do. Plus, if there's time, it's fill in some of the animal holes that are decided to mounds that they've decided to make by having a wide, open, large, grassy area. So I would say last year's project was very successful, and they've offered to do it again, as well as taking care of some weeds and digging up and putting down some more dirt so that the field can be used, as was mentioned in the email, that both the VFW and the American Legion had teams that played used our field in addition to our town ball Knights team. So, and if the work's being donated, so I would make a motion to accept that donation for the ball field improvements.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Rainville. Any other discussion? Let's move to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries. All right, donations accepted. We move on to number 12, which is new business.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember, please.
before we move on to new business, since we just did the clerk's update, I would like to, and I might get weedy on this, but I would like to thank Natalie and probably Delia, who worked really hard on it, but it seems like our sound system and video is much improved over previous years. And hopefully the residents see the benefit to it as well, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I would give most of the credit to Delia. She worked very, very hard with this vendor to get this working.
And so tonight is a huge improvement. Much appreciated.
Excellent, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I agree with Councilmember Blazer. I mean, we used to record them on cassette tapes. So we've come a long way. So, yeah, thank you, Delia. Unfortunate she had that background.
She's done a lot of hard work,
Yeah.
and we've failed multiple times to get to here, but I gotta tell you, Ms. Johnson, we continue to encourage her, we continue to look at, I know we had upset residents, I can't tell you the number of phone calls I've got on it, and to say the sound quality is bad, so I certainly appreciate all the work and effort It sounds like we're there. You said next week they will come in, or the end of this week, they're gonna come in and put the
Yeah,
permanent
they're
system in.
trying for Friday, if not early next week.
So, great point, thank you for bringing that up. All right, so we're on number 12, which is 12A, approval of revision of city council policy. Ms. Johnson, you want to take the lead on this one?
This is the next thing that was on our list after we finished the administrative personnel policies. So pretty much I'm gonna let Attorney Alsites run through it. It was a policy that, as far as I know, hasn't been touched in I'm not sure how long. And some things needed to be adopted, and he suggested some changes. So Attorney, would you like to take it over?
Yes, please.
Would be happy to. And this one is much more brief than the personnel policy, so that is good. I just want to make clear that under section 1-1-1, which is page 198 of the council policy packet, that you all are aware that when you adopt this policy, the policy is binding. You must abide by that policy. So this is one of those situations where I always like to advise clients, if you don't want to do something or you're up in the air about it, maybe it's best practice, but you're not inclined to abide by it, every single time, or there's reasons not to, don't put it in the policy, because you are going to be required to abide by it. So just keep that in mind when we, have conversations about certain provisions here, is that if something is included, that means that it must be followed. Speaking of things that must be followed, I just wanted to include in it's page 199, section 1-1-3, the open meeting law. Just a reminder here, and this is a requirement of statute, so it's not putting any additional burden on you, that you are not allowed to engage in serial communication, meaning, council member A talks to the clerk talks to council member B, relays that to council member A, etc. So I thought it was pertinent to put into the council policy. This one is a bit more of a policy call. It's not a statutory requirement, but I believe in speaking with Ms. Johnson and kind of reading through the policy. It seems you all have your individual email accounts, just requiring that email accounts are conducted through those email accounts and they're not for personal use. It just helps keep everything neat and tidy for purposes of data practices, requests, etc. It also allows for the municipality to know where all of their records are at any given time. We've had situations with municipalities where a million email accounts are used, and trying to track down where the town records are is always difficult in that instance because our emails can be full of those records. So that is just, yep.
I thought you were on pause for a second. Sorry to interrupt. So just give you an example. So I'm at work. I've asked Ms. Johnson to send it to my work email so I see it come in. So number one, if she needs a response, I can get it. This would be a violation of using my work emails to respond to Ms. Johnson. Is that correct?
What is Ms. Johnson sending you in the first place, Mr. Mayor?
The donation. So she's sending it to my mayor account, but also my work account. So one, I see it. And then if I respond, it would be a thanks or something like that. But I'd probably be the first person to be in violation of not using the mayor email on everything.
Yeah, as drafted, that could be a technical violation. And if that's something that you all do in practice, I just want to make you aware that your private emails then will be the subject of a data practices request, if applicable. And so just to safeguard your personal email accounts, I would, say err on the side of just using your municipal accounts, your city accounts. But that is
having that email account open and this email account.
I can just send an email that says check your email if it's something I need to see today.
Thank you.
That great idea.
Because my goal is not to be in violation. It's just sometimes you're trying to balance a lot of different things, and that's why I bring it up to the whole council, because I'm not great at that. So we'll flip directions. Thank you. Proceed, please.
Okay. And again, that would be what we would call kind of like a directory policy. There's not a specific sanction for, not abiding by it. So if there is a violation, it does not undo any permit that's being discussed or anything like that. It simply just means that your emails become subject to that data practices request, and that, more email accounts than just the city email accounts are containing town records. The next section, I resolved the issue on page 202, page 203. Rules of order and procedure. I want to talk about this one for just a little bit.
Hold on a second, Councilmember Rainbow's got a question.
So, Mr. Mayor, and the council, so on page 201, G is in George, informational meetings. The council will conduct an informational / orientation meeting with newly elected officials in the second Thursday of December of each year. So we've not done that. Is it something we want to do? Because we have, it's been in there, we've never done it. Frank, first time Frank was here, he started to try to work on that. But because they're not elected, or they're not in office yet, we can't make it mandatory that a newly elected official do it. So an incentive would be that we pay them a stipend to attend.
Could we just remove it?
What, or we can remove it. I mean, does council see value in doing that? Now this year, or last year, Natalie met with the new incoming council members. Maybe that is sufficient, but we need to decide if we want to do it. If we don't, take it out. If we do, what's the process?
I'd like to refer to Councilmember Blazer on that. You think what we did was sufficient?
I do, unless the meeting for new council members with current council members would cover anything procedural type of things. Because that, for me, the hardest part of this job was the first couple of meetings. So otherwise, I think the orientation day that you and I experienced was good. Was good.
So what I would suggest then that we remove it, but put on Natalie's to-do list down the road, because we won't have an election till next fall, that maybe she try to develop something for new council members and then come back to us with, this is what I'd suggest based on what she did last year with the new council members. And unless we just decide not to do it, we might.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I don't think we need to formalize it. I mean, if we're saying that it's an informational meeting, then we can do it as well. Picking a specific time, second Thursdays of December, because December can get kind of busy as far as holidays, etc. So I would just assume remove it, and then we can work around it however we need to, and it's not a policy.
Great, small
Okay,
options.
yeah, okay, so delete it.
Is everybody good? Delete? All right, so I don't even, what do you call that? 1-1-5-G would be delete. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on page 202, just a very minor tweak that I've included. The presiding officer shall determine which member has the right to speak and may move matters to a vote once the officer is determined all members have spoken. Just a minor clarification, or have had the opportunity to speak. All members don't need to speak, just be given the opportunity. Page 203, 1-1-7 Rules of Order and Procedure. The Minnesota Mayors Association and League of Minnesota Rules of Order, it makes it sound like it's two different, so I've changed it to the official title, and making clear that it is one mayor's handbook produced by the league, and that we're adopting the version that's dated October 2024. So it's excluding past versions. It's just clear and succinct. With respect to that, the only issue I have with adopting that handbook arises on page 204. I pulled this language from there. It's the language in red on page 204, which is when a council member violates the terms of this policy, the presiding officer can not recognize until that person comes into decorum, declares the council member's actions as out of order, or move to a formal vote to censure, which again, censuring really doesn't do anything. It's just a public reprimand, essentially, with getting multiple people behind it. The mayor's handbook also recommends a possibility for an order of removal from the council chambers by law enforcement until a council member agrees to abide by council rules of decorum. I would highly caution against that. There's a good amount of First Amendment case law that deals with even trying to limit disturbances in an audience, and removal of an individual who could be, per se, quote unquote, disturbing the peace or disturbing peaceful assembly. there has been First Amendment case law that has come down in the state of Minnesota that indicates that that the language is essentially changed in that statute because of its chilling effect on First Amendment. So I would highly discourage using that method that is included in this Minnesota Mayor's Handbook for risk of a possible 1983 constitutionality claim for violating First Amendment.
Where did you see it listed in here? What page was that specific?
Thank you. So if you go to the Mayor's Handbook, chapter 1-19,
1-19?
and it appears to be referenced in Appendix A as well of the Mayor's Handbook.
Yeah, so it's not listed. Perfect. I have to tell you, I think not including it in our handbook would be appropriate. I think
Yes.
we're all equals. If you look at this and the goal is to keep each other in check, there shouldn't be anybody voting off the island. That's not the way I believe it should work. So, any other discussion on
Mr.
that?
Mayor,
Sir.
Attorney Allsides, are we bound by that though, by the statement that rules of order and procedure, these proceedings of the city council shall be conducted in accordance with the Minnesota Mayor's Handbook? So are we bound by that?
And that's what I'm indicating. I've spoken with the two partners, Mike and Bob, about the language and how this is drafted. It is the presiding officer is authorized to. So if we do have specific concerns about it, we could create a caveat and adopt by reference the entirety of this handbook with the exception of removing this particular language. The other way to do it is just adopt it, and technically the mayor would have discretion to do it, but I would caution as the city attorney for the mayor, whomever may be appointed as the presiding officer for a hearing, to not do that, given the liability it could put the city under.
I can just tell you this, I would not do that. I would not do that to anybody. That's not the goal. The goal is how to get along and make things, get it done for the city. So I think it's a good recommendation.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainbow.
on page 203, where the Attorney Allsets is removed under 1-1-8, he's removed the aspirational statement prior to the thing on ABC. So should we then delete the, under D, to effectuate these aspirational goals? Because we've taken that verbiage out of A, B, and C, so we just start out with city council members shall conduct themselves.
I've got no problem with that.
That would be a good recommendation, in my book.
Remove 1-1-8 D aspirational language. Okay.
We on page 206 now?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, we got
So
Oh, 204, we got Councilmember Bryan.
1-1-9 talks about voting that the votes of the city council will be taken by voice vote. That's obviously not the case anymore, as we have meetings that we're allowed to attend remotely.
Well, they're all,
But,
Mr. Mayor, they are voice votes.
Yeah.
They're just not group
Okay, gotcha,
votes.
gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
It's not a group vote.
It's typically covered in another section. All right, so we go down to 204? We go to 206?
yes. 206 1-1-13 minutes. So if you look to Minnesota statute 412.151, it does indicate that, and let me control F minutes here. The clerk shall keep a minute book, noting therein all proceedings of the council. That's the statutory requirement. So I see a comment from someone that a minute book is not being kept. So I would keep a minute book. What I will indicate here, though, is having the language "the minutes shall contain" at a minimum is again placing a very high burden on whomever takes the minutes, and means that your minutes need to include all of those things. And if they don't, it could subject you to potential liability if the minutes are ever brought up in litigation. So again, I would advise changing the language here to "the minutes may include," and not have it be a shall, or not be the shall language in essence. And then you could consider paring this down if you want as well. But I think that we should make this more aspirational in nature instead of a requirement that goes far above what is required by statute.
I think nobody's gonna argue that, that sounds good.
Mr. Mayor.
Great.
Attorney Alsight,
Yes.
it was Delia, because she and I talked about this, that we no longer keep up like a 3-ring binder with all of the meeting minutes in it, that they're all hosted online, either on the website or in an electronic by year and date. Is that sufficient? We don't really have to have like a book, do we?
Statute is not clear on that. I'll see if there's case law that's come up or if there are any, oftentimes statutes will have kind of a notes section in Westlaw, which is our legal research engine. So I will put that on my list of to-dos to see if electronic minute books satisfy. Because I know there are some requirements like keeping an ordinance book at the library that's generally done on paper. So I do want to take a look at this one and get an answer back to you. It shouldn't take long at all.
Okay, thank you.
Book, paper, or not. Okay,
Thank you.
let's keep scrolling. I'm down at compensation now, page 211. I think that maybe, Natalie, did you want to address this?
Yeah, the salaries needed to be adjusted, and you and I can talk about that.
Okay.
That's 2 meetings behind,
Yeah.
two changes behind.
Mr. Mayor?
Ma'am, go ahead.
Does it even need to be there?
Are we better off to just say it can be amended per your policy and just kind of remove the dollar amounts in it?
I mean, I-
Yes.
So,
Or already in ordinance?
so Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainbow, go ahead.
so we have, in our city code,
Right.
chapter 1, administration, section 3 is city council salaries. So can we just, compensation is based on city code, and then, and this has to be fixed too, because it talks about per diem salaries, which we don't do per diem salaries.
It's in ordinance that way though.
Right, so we need to, that is something to put on the to-do list, to work on that. And I started doing a draft one of it, which I'll work with Natalie on that, so we get that, corrected.
Change the policy to reference the ordinance, and then when it changes, the ordinance will change, and then we're covered.
Right, yeah, it's just one spot.
Council member, could I get that or the city code number again that you were referencing? Compensation set per city code.
Chapter 1, administration, section 3, city council salaries.
Thank you.
Also too, on that same page 211, city council meetings, it says 7 o'clock, we now do 6. Can we make that more generic or does it have to have a time?
It doesn't need to have a time, I don't believe. Again, this is something I can look at. I know that you do need to post, there's a requirement of notice of when your meetings are going to be. I would just do a default of, my advice would just be do a default of 6 o'clock and include language unless otherwise noticed.
Okay, that sounds good.
That just covers all bases best. Okay. I'm gonna keep going here. I think that's it.
I think that's it also.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainbow.
I move that we approve the City of Melbourne City Council policy with the changes that we discussed with Attorney Alsett.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Bryan, any other discussion? Hearing none, let's move to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Complete.
Can I just ask a quick question? Page 213, perform or delegate the duties of official lead inspector?
That's state statute.
It's really, really important.
Not that
Lead
weed.
inspector.
Yeah,
So I'm still studying to
And-
figure out what are good weeds and bad weeds.
yeah.
I
And
thought
that
you were
gets
gonna be at the
that gets
Paradise
a laugh from
Residency
every new
testing.
council member.
Testing, product.
No,
That's
that's
what I
not,
see.
that's not my lane. Potency testing. All right, so we're up to 218, 12B. Good job.
Mr. Mayor, too, also, page 217, city council liaisons to certain city advisory committees. That also needs to be updated, and I'll work with Natalie on that, because we also have a stipend involved in that now. And so I'll work with Natalie, who then can work with Mark on it.
Sounds like a plan.
So since we just approved it,
Do we need to vote again on it?
I would like
Sure, I
to,
can
I'd like to
add
know
that.
that, well, can we approve it as is and that one section can come back?
Okay. Done. We're gonna go with your recommendation, thank you. Can we move on to the next one, which is on page 218, approval of ordinance 2025, repealing and replacing the fee schedule. And Ms. Johnson, just talk to anything significant on that.
There really isn't. It's a lot of the things that both Mary and Delia worked really hard on to find the prices compared to other recycling centers. Quite a few of, trying to change some vendors around it all. Looking at our rentals, looking at our driveway access permits. The planning and zoning, we've already discussed those application fees. The right-of-way management, that was basically clarifying some language and adding the excessive use of law enforcement services. Attorney Alsites, do you have anything else that you kind of do you want to go through your comments on it or her comments?
Yeah, so my comments that are more substantive than just, changing cost incurred to costs incurred just for consistency, so we can capture all cost and it doesn't just refer to one cost, would start on page 230, bottom of the page, professional fees and escrow amounts. You can kind of see the according red lines here. There was a reference to section 1-2-3 of the city code, which does not exist. So I removed any references to that. I included language that escrow amounts for applications, instead of setting it at a flat 1,500, shall be set and amended by resolution of the city council. So you all can set an escrow schedule for different fees at different amounts. Obviously, somebody who wants to open up a wood shop, IUP making cabinets, is different than somebody who wants to do a massive mining operation that will require EIW, EIS, etc. That's going to cost a lot more. The escrow should probably be reflected to be different. So that is something that you all may consider. And then the last thing is,
Wait, hold on a second. Ms. Nash.
Attorney Alsites, I get to interrupt you. You probably are not aware that a year ago, the city adopted a ordinance directly pertaining to escrows that has considerable more language than this section.
okay, I was not aware of that in my conversations with Delia, because I asked if, she was able to chase down this 1-2-3, and she said, I don't see anything either. With that in mind, I think that this language, upon my review of that ordinance, I should look at and retool this language to be consistent with that ordinance.
I would concur. But it does allow us to set, for staff basically, to set the escrow amounts depending on the complexity of a project.
Exactly, and that's all I'm looking for here, right? Just for the example that I gave for that reason. So very good. The only thing that I didn't see in the escrow language here, and it could be in that other ordinance, is there was no return of unused funds in the escrow language. That's just something that's common practice. If city doesn't need to use all of the funds of the escrow, it should be returned. So I've added that language on 231. And then the last thing I want to talk about is administrative fines. So page 232, administrative enforcement penalties. There was a Class A and Class B labeled here. Again, in speaking with Delia, we weren't able to find any class schedules that categorized violations as Class A or Class B. So I'll relay to you what I told and advised Delia, which is we should set a schedule. And speaking with one of the partners, Bob Rupi at the office, Bob, his personal recommendation and preference is, if we're going to take the time to do it as ordinance instead of resolution, as I've suggested here. Really, the only reason to do that is because administrative fines in the first place are kind of on some degree of shaky legal ground. the statutory authority to impose them is not super clear. We have the power to enact ordinances, and ordinances act as local law, but it could just be a little bit clearer if we set it directly by ordinance. That would be Mr. Rupi's recommendation. So with that being said, when we think about structuring administrative penalties, the way that we've seen it done most effectively is having your Class A be zoning, for example. All zoning infractions get you this administrative penalty. That's your Class A's. Your Class B's are then, what injures public health and safety, your nuisances, right-of-way ordinances, etc. That could be set at a flat dollar amount as well. And then having a Class C, which would be a catch-all for all ordinances not included in Class A and Class B, you would be subject to a Class C administrative penalty or fine. We generally don't advise going beyond 3 administrative penalties. Once we get to that point, the next step, we've given notice, we've given them the administrative penalties, is bringing an action in district court to get compliance. I'll use a zoning violation or a nuisance as an example. Our statutory ability to enter onto somebody's property without court order could subject us to possible trespass claims. It could also subject us to possible takings claims if we are going to remove a pile of junk from somebody's property that had all of their antique collectible goods that are worth so much money. Really, before we do any taking of property, we want to go through process. You've probably heard the phrase due process, and we want to go through process when we do our enforcement actions as well. That process is through a district court order. And when we bring that district court lawsuit, we want to make sure our ordinances, and we talked about this a little earlier in the night, contains the language for collection of costs incurred in enforcing our ordinances pursuant to Minnesota statutes 366.012, 429.021. And I like to include the language as well, any other relevant authority, because if I do get fees awarded, a court, gives us a court order saying that we're getting attorney's fees, there's a then hearing that comes after for how much of the fee should be awarded. And I like to point back to the court order as authority as well and say, our ordinance says any other authority in court, you've just issued an order saying we're entitled to fees. So independent of statute at this point, we're operating under a court order as well that gives us an entitlement to fees. And the only question left is how much can we recover? So that's kind of my take here. So I would turn it over. It's completely a policy call for you all, how you structure your administrative fines and penalties. That is just what we've seen as best practice, kind of how I broke it down between Class A, B, and C.
Ms. Johnson, go ahead.
Mark, just to have some clarification then, you want to do an administrative fine ordinance and we can work on that, and that's kind of would take over this place?
That sounds great. I think that's the cleanest way to do it so we can move forward with the fee schedule. Let's move this administrative fine ordinance to a different ordinance. That way we're not holding up the show on the fee schedule.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville.
I have 2 corrections on page 224, the under the recycling tires. About a little more than halfway down is loader, $55, that should be deleted. And then underneath that is skid steer off rim, skid steer on rim, that should be a skid steer or a bobcat. And Gilly is aware of that. But just so that one misses.
A bobcat is a skid steer.
No, they're different manufacturers, but cases.
A skid steer's a skid steer, a bobcat's a brand of a skid steer.
Like when you say skid steer, it's all inclusive. It's,
Okay.
Yeah, we could take that out there.
Well, the problem is if our administrative staff doesn't know the difference, they won't know how to, so if you do
We
it.
can make sure that they know.
Okay, all right.
we'll train them to know what skid steer is. Perfect. Is there any other corrections on that?
That's it.
Councilmember,
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Ryan.
I'm just curious, do we police the usage of chairs and the rentals of chairs? Are we literally taking these chairs and locking them up if somebody rents this space out and then?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
No, it's the other chairs that we have when they take them off-site. So we've got a couple of rows of the metal chairs in the shop, and we do have a few people that will rent those chairs, and those are the only ones we rent up. We don't rent these off-site. And if they're here, they can use them.
Okay, it wasn't clear what that meant with given where that section was, so. All right,
Councilmember Rainville, did you have something to add?
No, I was just going to clarify.
And Mr. Mayor, one additional thing that I've just thought of. So we also don't have the fee in here for the excessive use of law enforcement services. I think that I can't recall if the council left it as we're still going to conduct some research and talk to the sheriff about the price per hour or price per call. I know that we had received a memo from the sheriff. I'm not sure where we're at with council action on that. But I do think that wherever we have landed, and if we have not landed anywhere, council should make a decision and include that fee in the administrative, not in the administrative, but in the fee schedule.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rainville?
that, I believe that is addressed on page 232.
Oh, it is. I missed it. Thank you, Councilmember Rainbow.
Okay, so,
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Bryan.
make a motion to approve the ordinance repealing and replacing the fee schedule and including the publication of the updated ordinance.
Second.
To include going to the A, B, and C, that'll be separated out and done. Is that correct, David? Fee schedule? Didn't,
Administrative fine schedule.
With whatever changes that we've discussed tonight.
yes, sir, Your Honor. Somebody want to second that?
I know.
I thought Councilmember Rainville.
I might, sorry, thank you for seconding a second time. I might have missed it, Mike. Ms. Johnson.
Can we add accepting the ordinance summary so that it can get
Already did.
put up for it? Did you catch that? Okay.
He's pretty good.
Trying to
It's like
pull
three
it since you
steps
had it on
ahead.
there.
I'm trying to get him to use his outside voice, Ms.
He
Townsend.
does need to use his outside voice.
That's what these little microphones are for.
Any other discussion on it? Move to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If anybody didn't catch it, Councilmember Bryan did say aye, which is very low. All right, so that takes care of 12B. Does that take care of 12C also then?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Much better.
Outstanding, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, since it's kind of old new business, do we want to add the date to review the budget and just get that on calendars now, or do you want to do that at another time?
We certainly can. If you're, because we're on old business, you'd like to add the date?
I'm just thinking we're kind of in that general vicinity.
Yeah.
We could either do it, I don't necessarily think we want to do 2 back-to-back meetings, so I would look at November 5th or November 19th.
Could I recommend something?
Sure.
Could we do December 2nd, 1 week before the city council meeting? Would that be possible? Instead of pushing it to November, so one, if we're gonna talk about city budget, it'll give us a little bit of time to process, and then we would do our final vote adopting on the 9th. If that 1 week earlier would work.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask for staff that we do it on the 8th, on Monday night? Only because the 2nd, we won't have all of our invoices ready for the claims on the 9th, so they won't be posted yet. Our deadline's not really until the 4th. We try to get them all in.
Maybe we could do the 4th instead. I prefer to not put it the day before the city council meeting,
The 4th, we can make sure we cut off by then.
because then at that point, we would have all projections in.
I'm not available.
Okay, the 4th is out. Throw that to the wayside.
3rd could work.
We'll just cut off our check run sooner than.
Okay. Would that work for everybody else, December 30th? Yes, yes, yes. If everybody's good with it, I'm putting it in right now. City council meeting budget.
I will verify that, Ms. Yeager is available.
Yes, please. We would do 6 o'clock on Wednesday, December 3rd. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I would like to move on to old business, which is the internet update. We did meet with Comcast again. Let me get the page flipped here. Can we put the map, can we project that up on the screen?
I don't have it up. I'm sorry.
All right, so you're gonna see some, it's on your very back page, you're gonna see multiple different colors. Purple areas are areas that they're completed. Magenta is Connexus is completed, but Comcast is in progress. Pink is where Connexus is in progress, and Comcast would come and follow them. White is the permitted design, and then light blue is Connexus design for permitted. So the one thing he said is they are a couple weeks behind due to Connexus having to deal with some, I'll say, unplanned weather, which caused a few weeks delay. But they're cautiously optimistic, and that's probably the best term I can use to say that everybody will be complete by the end of 2025. Currently, right now, they have 333 homes that are released for service and another 600 targeted by the end of October. So they are working diligently. They've got a very good sync plan with Connexus and Comcast working together on this. The one area that would be last on the list, and it's in the light blue, it's really in the southwest corner of Nowlan. If the map is up there, I'll just point to it. So somewhere in this, where Burns Parkway, it was a tough map to look at. Right in here is gonna be the last area that they're gonna finish up. A lot of this was serviced by Arvig, where they serviced about 83 houses. But we've got one little section here that we're hoping we can get done and it will be the last connection piece, and it'll probably be in November before it gets done. So, any questions on the update from Comcast? I can say we got everybody working in the same direction trying to get this done. So we'll be really excited. Every couple weeks, more and more get done, more houses are getting turned on. But just the struggle is going to be, can we get it all completed this year? Worst case scenario is that particular area, it doesn't get turned on until April of 2026. But nobody wants to do that.
Mr. Mayor, do they not already have Arvig though?
No,
No,
there's a couple
it's
houses there
in
that
there.
got missed. They went short on Arvig and then they're last in the Comcast plan.
Okay.
Okay, recycle center. So the last on the agenda is 13B, recycle center. Who is leading that one?
Attorney Alsites. And
Okay.
they have some comments on the contract that they want us to change before, we tend to be okay to sign it and get it moving.
Okay, sir, it's back up to you for all sets.
Thank you, all sites. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So no major red flags here. I'll kind of jump to my biggest concern, which is the first borderline red flag, which is section 11. It's the indemnification provision. My concern is that the existing language in section 11, which I can tell you here is on page 37. Nope, 30. It's 35. So it's page 35 of the city council packet, paragraph 9, indemnification. It doesn't provide a limit on what you're indemnifying. So the language that I have drafted that's appearing on the screen here says that you're indemnified from to the extent that such claims arise from the municipality or the county's negligence or willful misconduct in connection with activities performed under the agreement. And then clarifying neither party shall be responsible for another party's, routine administrative mistakes, delays, or minor procedural oversights, except to the extent that it actually rises to the level of gross negligence, which is reckless disregard for the agreement. I just think that limitation is important so you don't get drawn in over small nitty gritty things that you then have to agree to. You don't have to agree to hold harmless. And then just making sure that those obligations set forth in the section survive termination of the agreement or expiration of the agreement as well. So that's kind of the language that I would suggest with respect to indemnification. One other thing, given this agreement does involve an exchange of funds through a grant program, what happens to partially funded projects or equipment that the city has purchased and is used for recycling purposes pursuant to the agreement? But we now have a terminated agreement. What happens to that property? What happens to eligible expenses that are incurred prior to the date of expiration? These are the things that I don't want the city to have to be out of pocket for, but rather I think that this agreement should contain a provision that allows for things in motion to get to disposition prior to the termination. and just clarifying that what is city property used for purposes of this agreement will remain as such so long as it's used for recycling purposes, and that any and all eligible expenses that you incur up to the date of termination is subject to the agreement as well, and that unspent funds go back. The other stuff above is more minor. For example, section 4, paragraph 2, the county reserves the right to assess reimbursement reporting status for each municipality. There's no written notice requirement for this. It's very similar. Section 4, paragraph 3, the right to withdraw reimbursement by the county. Again, there's no opportunity to cure a defect. So it doesn't hurt to throw language in and see if they'll give you 30 days to cure that instead of just being able to withdraw the reimbursement immediately. Section 5, paragraph A is just a practical concern. This is kind of the notice requirements about the recycling programs. It gives 3 options for the municipality. The first 2 include what reads to be kind of paper versions. I wasn't sure if the city would want to inquire if they would be okay with an electronic version just as a cost saving measure and also just for administrative ease. Section 6, adding in language that the city shall not be financially penalized for errors resulting in a misscheduled deadline. Again, just giving an opportunity to cure, so there's no penalty there. And then section 6J was a little bit interesting. The language in this section makes it seem like the county is asking the city, or almost requiring by provisions of the agreement, requiring that the city agree to support the county in its efforts obtaining hauler reports by ensuring compliance through ordinance, contractor license requirements, and ability to exercise punitive actions if needed. That if needed language is a bit weird. It sounds like county discretion. And does that mean that the county gets to boss us around and tell us that we need to bring an enforcement action in district court via contract under our ordinances? It's unclear what that language means to me. I would like to see it scrapped in its entirety and just, hey, I mean, the city's going to work with you guys on this, but we don't need to get dragged into anything at the will of the county.
Attorney Allsites, hold on just a moment. Councilman Ringo.
Attorney, so so we do 2 reports to them a year. One is a reimbursement report, getting our money back or getting reimbursed. The other is this tonnage report. And what Jay refers to is we have our curbside haulers, Ace, LePage, Republic. Every month they're supposed to provide us the tonnage of recycling that they pick up for a total for the city. There are some cities that license their haulers, and part of that license, they can require that as part of a license. We don't license our haulers.
Okay.
That's just so but we get it from them because they're doing it for everybody else, and they know that it's part of the county contract that they send us on a monthly basis what tonnage they picked up for recycling.
Okay, that gives me a little more context and kind of explains the hauler reports a little bit.
Yeah, it's a hauler report. It's how much recycling they picked up, a certain tonnage for the city for a month.
Maybe adding a little nomenclature of like recycling hauler would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. But that encompasses the totality of my thoughts on this. I think if there are 2 to push for, it would be the revisions to the indemnification language, as well as the proposed additional section 12 that I drafted. That is with respect to disposition of partially funded projects. The rest would be nice, but I don't have strong feelings about.
So 12 needs to be added, it's not even there.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Ringo.
I would move that we ask Attorney Allsets to work with Ms. Johnson to provide those updates to the county and see if they're agreeable, and then sign off.
Sorry,
You say again, sir?
second,
That was a second, I missed that.
sorry, that was me. Second.
Thank you for using our titles. Very helpful. Is there any other discussion on this? All right, let's move to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Ryder.
just to clarify, Councilmember Rainbow, you just said something that if our recycling haulers are licensed, we can require that they submit the tonnage reports? Okay, so would that solve our problem of the whole city thing? Where if it says Anoka, we're not getting it?
I would assume not, because they are going by, yeah, I don't know, I'd have to ask them
I'm
that.
just
but yeah,
curious, if that's the case, charge them $5 and then
Yeah.
they're responsible for figuring out who's in Alden and who's
Where,
not.
yeah, if it's Meldon or not, we can try that,
Okay, it was just
yeah.
the thought, so, okay.
Councilmember Ryder.
No.
Councilmember Swenson.